I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Building and Operating Committee of Thursday, 22nd October, 2020. The time is 9:25 a.m. Before we begin, please be advised the meeting is being recorded. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you. Director Belforte.
Present.
Present. Director Cochran.
Here.
Present. Director Fredericks.
Here.
Present. Director Garbarino.
Here.
Present. Director Rabbit.
Here.
Present. Vice Chair Moylan. Absent. Chair Tirio.
Here.
Present. And President Parr. President Parr, are you still on the line?
Yep, I pushed the wrong button. Yes, I'm here.
No problem. Thank you.
We're all muted again.
Thank you. You are a committee of the whole, and you also have directors Arnold, Grosbo, Hill, Maston, and Sobel on the line. From staff. Thank you. Dennis Mulligan, you still here with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Joe Wire?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Eva Bauer-Furbish?
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks.
Thank you. Steve Miller?
Here, I'm right. Good morning.
Thank you. Mona Babauta?
Present.
Thanks again. Jim Swindler?
Yes, I am. Still here.
Thank you. And Kelly Hopper?
Present.
Thank you. That confirms staff on our line. Thank you.
Thank you. I remind everyone to mute their phones until after staff's presentation. And remember to unmute when we open up for director discussion. After staff's presentation, I will ask for any comments and/or questions on the item. If there are questions, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. After our discussion, we will ask for any public comment before taking a roll call vote. Each page of the meeting packet is numbered on the bottom right-hand corner for ease of following along. The sun has just broken through the fog here in the Excelsior District, and we will begin with item number 3 on the agenda. To approve actions relative to Professional Services Agreement number 2018-B082, Temporary Structures Engineering Advisor Support Services for the construction of the Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent and Traveler Systems with TJA Engineering, Inc. The staff report begins on page 3, and we have Eva Bauer-Furbish on the line to present the report. Ms. Bauer-Furbish, please take it away.
Thank you, Chair Tirio. The agenda item number 3 is related to the Physical Suicide Deterrent Project and covers staff recommendation for execution of the second amendment to PSA number 2018-B82 with TJA Engineering in an amount not to exceed $1,340,000 for continuation of engineering support services during construction of the Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent System project. The recommendation also includes establishing a 10% contingency in the amount of $134,000 for this amendment. And these actions will require an increase in the amount of $1,474,000 in the fiscal year 2021 Bridge Division capital budget for project 1526. And this increase would be funded from district reserves. So for the background, the construction contract for the Golden Gate Bridge Physical Suicide Deterrent System project, which is currently underway, involves installation of a horizontal stainless steel net system supported by cantilever steel brackets that are connected to the steel trusses along the west and east sides of the Golden Gate Bridge, and construction of a tall vertical railing at the north anchorage housing. Also, the contract includes replacement of the existing suspension bridge travelers with new travelers that are configured to avoid interference with the net system. In order for the contractor to access the various work areas on the bridge to construct the project, the construction contractor must design, fabricate, and install on the bridge temporary work access platforms to support workers, equipment, and materials required to carry on these construction operations. In addition, the construction contractor is also required to verify by calculations that the capacity of the roadway and sidewalk decks and any other portion of the existing bridge structures is sufficient to carry, in addition to traffic and wind loads, construction loads imposed by the construction operations. And if found to be necessary, the construction contractor is also required to design temporary supports and bracing to strengthen the bridge elements that support the construction load. Due to the specialized nature of various temporary structures and supports and their attachment to the Golden Gate Bridge, and the importance of contractors' proper engineering evaluation of the construction load imposed on the bridge, in addition to the engineering engineering review services provided by the project design consultant, the district has retained an engineering consultant to provide an independent second opinion review of the construction contractor submittals related to those work access systems and other temporary structures. In October 2018, the Board of Directors authorized execution of a professional services that cover such engineering services to TJA Engineering. The contract completion date for the suicide deterrent system by contract is January 12, 2021, but the project has not progressed as planned. The construction contractor has informed the district that all work will not be completed until April 2024, and that they will be continuing to develop and submit temporary access system and other temporary structure work plans through this time period. Today, the construction contractor has developed some of the temporary access system, mainly for the suspension bridge truss spans and the north approach viaduct. The effort to review the submittals covering this system consumed the TJA's approved professional services budget because of much higher than originally budgeted for number of submittals covering different access systems and resubmittals required to achieve the acceptable submittal content. Design of the access systems for the suspension bridge north back span, the main towers, and the south approach viaduct are still outstanding. And in addition, the construction contractor is still developing access system that will be used to remove the existing maintenance travelers and install the new maintenance travelers. Staff has performed a review of these remaining submissions and determined that to carry on the temporary structures engineering advisor support services through April 2024, an amendment to the TSA increasing the budget is necessary. Engineering staff requested, and TJA has provided a cost proposal in the amount of $840,000 for the requested additional scope of engineering support services. Engineering staff has reviewed the proposal and found it to be reasonable in terms of TJA's budgeted labor hours to perform the additional scope of services, and it was consistent with TJA's audited labor and overhead billing rates. In addition, TJA assistance is required with the review and response to the construction contractor's claims for additional compensation and time extension related to disputes involving temporary access systems and other aspects of construction, which requires structural engineering expertise to evaluate. Because it is difficult to assess with certainty the amount of TGA's effort that may be required by such an assignment. Staff recommends that the proposed second amendment to PSA with TGA includes a budget in the not to exceed amount of $500,000 for TGA's assistance with the claim reviews. The District's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Administrator has determined that TGA is a disadvantaged business enterprise and will perform 100% of the additional scope of work included in the second amendment. So with this, I am happy to answer any question the committee may have for me.
I'm doing it right now.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. Are there any questions for Ms. Bauer-Furbush or other staff members on this item? Hearing none, I do have one actually, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. This is, I think, as we all know, a particularly contentious element in the suicide deterrence system project, the materials you provided speak of the experience of TJA Engineering in this particular field. Can you? I realize it might be difficult to do off the top of your head, but can you elaborate a little bit on that experience?
So this consultant has been involved in our previous phases of the seismic retrofit project. It provided similar services, consultation to us on phase 1, and then was involved on the design consultant side for the phase 2 and phase 3A seismic retrofit. Phase 2, as you may remember, involved all the structures of the south approach, and it was a very successful project. The consultant provided a lot of quite ingenious engineering solutions, and we were able to accomplish a lot of not only retrofit, but also improvements to the south approach structures with the assistance of this consultant. So they are very knowledgeable about our bridge, but we also have the proven track record in being very detailed and very diligent in providing, top-notch engineering for our bridge.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. I actually walked up and down some of those systems in phase 2 in a prior role, and I can vouch for their being creative and tricky. Thank you for that. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this item?
Michael, I'm John Moylan is in.
Oh, sorry. Before we go on to the public then, John, I didn't realize you were there, but go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah.
Are you just checking in?
Yes. I'm ready
Okay,
to go.
thank you.
I'm sorry I'm late. But...
That's fine. So glad to have you, John. So then, Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item?
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to pull the comment line now. We have no speakers on this item.
All right. There being no speakers, can we have a motion to approve the item?
So moved.
I'll
There's
second.
a motion, and there's a second. Madam Secretary, did you get those?
I sure did.
Then please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first for Director Arnold, Director Fredericks, and a second from Director Cochran, starting with Director Arnold. Director Arnold?
Here?
Oh, okay. We're on our vote.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you. Director Belforte?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Frederick?
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino?
Yes.
Yes. Director Grosboll?
Yes.
Yes. Director Hernandez? Absent. Director Hill?
Yes.
Yes. Director Maston?
Yes.
Yes. Director Moylan?
Yes.
Yes. Director Rabbit? Director Rabbit's not on the line. Director Sears? Absent. Director Sobel?
Aye.
Aye. Director Yee? Absent. Second Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
Yes. First Vice President Terrio?
Yes.
Yes. And President Parr?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. And that motion passes 12-0.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 4 on the agenda is to approve actions relative to award of contract number 2020 F047, Ferry Fleet Scheduled Dry Dockings and Capital Improvements to Marine Group Boatworks, LLC. Staff report begins on page 11, and Ferry Division Manager Jim Swindler will present this report. Mr. Swindler, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow committee members. The item before you is staff's recommendation to approve actions relative to award of contract 2020 F047 Ferry Fleet Scheduled Dry Dockings and Capital Improvements to Marine Group Boatworks of Chula Vista, California, in the amount of $4,597,003, and establish a contingency in the amount of $459,701, which is 10% of the contract value, to address items that may be uncovered once the work begins. By way of background, our vessels are subject to U.S. Coast Guard inspection, including biennial dry dock inspection. The shipyard period is an opportune time to accomplish capital improvements and needed repairs. To achieve multiple efficiencies as well as planning benefits for both the district and our shipyard partners, this contract includes the district's 4 high-speed catamaran vessels and assures U.S. Coast Guard compliance through 2021. On August 7th, 2020, the district issued an invitation for bids, and on September 18th, received 2 bids from qualified shipyards, Marine Group Boatworks and Nichols Brothers Boat Builders. Upon receiving the bids, staff conducted an extensive review of the bids submitted by both shipyards and has determined that Marine Group Boatworks is the apparent low bidder. Its price is within the district's independent cost estimate and budget projections. A detailed review of the 2 bids revealed that while there is a $1.8 million differential between the bids, the majority of the differential is related to 3 specific categories and is explainable. The 3 categories were vessel delivery, vessel coatings, and dry dock cost. To give you an idea, the vessel delivery to Whidbey Island up in the Seattle area is almost twice what it is to San Diego. So obviously the vessel, we're talking about delivering 4 vessels. That was a significant part of the $1.8 million. The other area, there were 2 other areas where we noted a significant difference in the bids. One was vessel coatings. The low bidder asked a question and the district responded to that. The response was provided to both bidders, and we reviewed the low bidder's bid in that particular area and determined that it's appropriate. The other one is dry dock cost. They're just 2 different types of shipyards. The shipyard in Chula Vista has what they call a travel lift, better suited to easily move these vessels around. So there was a difference there as well. That makes up the majority of the $1.8 million differential between the bids. The project is included in the FY 2021 Ferry Division capital budget. It's funded with 20% district funds and 80% FTA funds. And with that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swindler. Do any of the directors have questions for Mr. Swindler or other staff members on this item?
Chairman Terrio, I have a question. This is Bert.
Please go ahead, Director Hill.
Now this is for 2021. what is the schedule for these? Are we able to take advantage of it while we're essentially down, or does it drag into the next year?
Yes, we are actually taking advantage of it. We're going to send the first vessel down probably within the next week. It's a luxury for us to be able to do this sort of work and do this and have these extensive shipyard periods and not worry about how we're going to provide all of our service. So it's one of the very few things that I could say is an advantage for us during this very difficult time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other directors? Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this matter?
Thank you. We're going to pull the line now. We have no speakers on this item.
All right. There being no speakers, is there a motion to approve the actions relative to the award of the contract?
I'll move
Also
the item.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, do you have those?
I do have those.
Then please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. I have a first from Director Cochran and a second from Director Garbarino, and I will start with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Belforte.
Yes.
Yes. Director Frederick.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Yes. Director Grosball.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Hernandez. Absent. Director Hill.
Yes.
Yes. Director Maston.
Yes.
Yes. Director Moylan.
Yes.
Yes. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Aye. Director Sears. Absent. Director Sobel.
Aye.
Aye. Director Yee. Absent. Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
Yes. First Vice President Terrio.
Yes.
Yes. And President Parr.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. The motion passes 13-0.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Next item is item 5, status of electric vehicle charging stations at the Larkspur Ferry Terminal. Staff reports on page 15, and General Manager Mulligan will present this report. Mr. Mulligan, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Terrio, members of the committee, and members of the public. The item before you is a status report. There's no action associated with this. We've had public comment recently inquiring as to why the district does not install multiple electric chargers on each light pole at the existing Larkspur Ferry Terminal. So I thought I'd provide some background information in terms of what the possibilities are and are not there currently. The electrical system at the Larkspur Ferry Terminal predates the advent of electric vehicles and has limited capacity. So the district cannot add level 2 chargers to the existing light poles unless the buried conduits are replaced, the electrical wiring within all those conduits are replaced, and the circuits are replaced. Level 2 chargers are a common charger nowadays. The electrical circuits for the existing light poles also could not accommodate a level 1 charger, which is a slow trickle charger. As background, the existing service at the Larkspur Ferry facility is an 800 amp, 480 volt, 3-phase, 4-wire service, which can deliver approximately 640 amps on a continuous basis. With respect to the parking lot, there are 90 light poles out there. And the existing parking lot circuits for the light poles are 20 amp or 30 amp circuits. A level 2 charger requires a 40 amp circuit. So the circuiting is deficient, and as I mentioned previously, the existing wiring to all the light poles is deficient for a level 2 charger. So neither the circuit breakers nor the wiring could accommodate even a single level 2 charger at any location, and I'll come back to except the one location where we have existing chargers. Level 1 chargers are rated for 120 volt supply, but that is not the power supply we have feeding the light poles. So if we were to place a level 1 charger at a light pole, we would have to install a transformer at that single light pole location. So at some future date, if and when the district expands the availability of electric charging at Larkspur, if that were the desire of the board, it would be prudent not to do it at each light pole location, but to centralize it and arguably do it near the existing electric feed so as to not tear up the entire parking lot. As background, we do have a couple of chargers out there. We were an early adapter, and the downside of being an early adapter is with the passage of time, you're antiquated. So the first charger installed at the Larkspur Ferry Terminal was in the early 2000s, and it was to support, no one probably remembers this, but Toyota RAV4 made electric cars in early 2000. And so we received the grant and we installed 2 chargers out there. And the nature of the grant, it was dedicated to EVs. And the parking at that time at Larkspur was not very much impacted. Our ridership level was much, much smaller than it is today. And so we had significantly less people using the Larkspur Ferry facility. With the introduction of the first high-speed catamaran, the Del Norte, and subsequently with the transition to all high-speed catamarans at Larkspur, it knocked 15 minutes off the travel time from Larkspur to downtown San Francisco. That, coupled with tremendous job growth in downtown San Francisco and associated congestion on the streets in San Francisco, we've had a tremendous growth in ferry ridership. So we experienced parking challenges at Larkspur. So we added approximately 200 spots in 2002 and another approximate 200 spots in 2008, bringing the existing lot up to 1,800 parking spots. That continued to fill up quickly. So we then added overflow parking at Larkspur Landing Circle at the old Marin Airporter site in 2015 for another 230 parking spots. So prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the lot would fill up. And so it's staff's recommendation that any EV charging at the Larkspur Ferry facility be reserved just for ferry passengers. We don't have the luxury of additional space to have people who are not using our service to come and use it. So occurring at the same time as those ridership trends and increased demand for parking at Larkspur, which is a good thing. We don't want people driving into San Francisco. We'd much rather to intercept that trip and have them get on one of our buses and ferries. We did replace one of those 2 chargers so it could deal with a more contemporary type vehicle in 2013. We did not replace the RAV4 supported charger though, because there's still a few of those actually in use, believe it or not. It's important to note that there is not a universal standard for electric chargers. For example, Teslas, which are one of the more prevalent or common electric vehicles, has a unique charging system that is not shared by other EVs. And Tesla provides their own network of charging stations. However, there's many other EVs out there and EV usage is growing. And it's important to also note that for non-Tesla EVs, there is chargers available immediately adjacent virtually to our Larkspur Ferry facility. We are evaluating the possibility where we have those 2 existing chargers, the possibility of having our electricians replace the charging heads out there if it's possible, but that would not provide an increase in the number of charging heads. If it did, it would just be 1. We may be able to have 3 out there. But with respect to the concept of looking at the light poles and saying there's power there, we should put chargers there, that is something that we cannot do. I also mentioned initially the service to the Larkspur Ferry facility, which is 800 amp, 480 volt, 3-phase, 4-wire. That limits the total number of level 2 chargers that could be installed hypothetically if there were a project to replace conduit and wiring out there. The existing service at Larkspur can only accommodate 16 level 2 chargers. And some people have opined that it would be nice to have a fast charger there. It's important to note that the existing electrical service at Larkspur can only accommodate 1 fast charger. So we have had conversations with the Transportation Authority of Marin. They have some grant funds. We have offered to them that if they wanted to, we would give them an encroachment permit at no cost and they can come in and do some infrastructure improvements. But more recently, we are exploring the possibility of our electricians swapping out the existing charging heads out there. I would also be remiss to say that, the board last October did adopt a green initiative, and we do have an upcoming green initiative project that is noteworthy because it would involve a project at our San Rafael facility, which is our largest power consumer here at the district. And engineering is planning to advertise in January a project that's sometimes referred to as repaving the parking lot. The repaving the employee parking lot will install a solar array that will make it a net zero facility, and that will be able to provide all of the power that we currently use at that large industrial facility. and over the coming years save millions of dollars of tolls that we use to pay our PG&E bills that can be reinvested in transit. So the district is committed to green initiatives, but to contemplate replacing or placing electric chargers at all the light poles would require a whole new electrical feed, digging up the entire parking lot virtually to put in all new conduit and all new wiring. But with that, I'm available to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing me to make this presentation.
Thank you, General Manager Mulligan. This was very informative. I'm kind of going to regret that we don't have our resident electrician on the board present today, but are there any other directors who have questions for General Manager Mulligan?
This is Dick. I do have a question.
Go ahead, Dick.
Dennis,
I have a question.
I'm curious how we compare, in essence, with, like, say, what WETA has done. Does WETA have these kind of charging stations in their parking lots?
WETA doesn't have a lot of parking lots. There is a parking lot in Vallejo, but it's not a WETA parking lot. But we can research that for you. You know, arguably the Larkspur Ferry Terminal parking lot's akin almost to a train station. So, you know, we could look at BART stations and elsewhere. So, you know, but we are exploring having our electricians replacing existing charging heads, so there'd be at least a couple of modern chargers out there. The reality is, today's electric vehicles are also different than they were 20 years ago, and they have much greater range. So if someone's just traveling a couple of miles from somewhere in Marin to Larkspur Ferry Terminal with an electric car acquired in the last few years, it has enough range to do that trip back and forth for several weeks before it would need to be recharged.
Well, that was a second follow-up question is, have you received many written complaints from customers about not having the charging stations? I mean, has it been 3 people, 10 people, 20, or what?
The people that have advocated for it are not ferry customers. So we have not had any complaints from ferry customers. As there's many EVs you'll see prior to COVID parked in the parking lot, and they were not parked at the chargers, and the chargers were dedicated parking. So we do have EVs that are used by our customers to access the site, but we haven't had complaints for customers. I think there's a broader initiative in Marin County to greatly increase the number of chargers, something we support, but we're not sure that this is a necessary location, since there are some chargers nearby at Larkspur Landing Circle and at Drake's Landing.
At this stage, we really only have one working charger, right?
There's 2, but one that could be used by a non-RAV4, non-Tesla. We are exploring the possibility of pulling both of those heads and putting in perhaps 2 or 3 level 2 charging heads.
I guess at some point I would hope that I'm sure, I know you mentioned it in the report, but it does seem like there might be some grant money for this. I understand it seems like a significant cost, but with our green initiative, it does seem like we should have as a goal of expanding some. I don't know the right number, but I understand the concern about cost, particularly now. So.
Agreed, but we are looking forward to studying how, as we revise and add parking at Larkspur, incorporating additional chargers.
Okay, thank you.
Director Healy, you had a question as well?
Director, this is Bert. I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
As a person who has had an electric car since 2002 and know the issues, yes, the head is entirely different. And at that time, it took over 8 hours on a 110. 110 takes a huge amount of time to charge anything, so it's unrealistic to consider having that, in my opinion. With that, I would say also a note in the document: never trust the miles published, because the amount of miles that the EV has is factored heavily by the ground that it covers. If you're going uphill or downhill or stop or go, it radically reduces the number of miles that can go with it. I'm not saying anything relative to this changes what General Manager said. It's just that they don't get as much as they think, because we tend to use for the study what they rate them as, which is not a very accurate way of doing it. Let's see. Question regarding the San Rafael facility. Are you planning on also installing solar panels that would charge those chargers so that you'd have a completely clean cycle all the way around? That's a question, and that's all I have.
Certainly. I'll start with the latter question. At the San Rafael facility, when we repave the employee parking lot and we put in a solar array, we will be putting in some solar charging stations for our employees. We do actually have a fair number of employees who drive EVs, and they'll be able to swipe their credit card and fuel their vehicle while they're parked there. But the intent of the project is not to provide electric power for a couple of cars. It's to provide the power for the entire industrial facility that we have in San Rafael. We currently pay PG&E approximately $250,000 a year, and that expense would go to near zero once we conclude that project. With respect to your earlier point, Director Hill, about the range, the same is true of electric buses. The district has the pleasure of operating 2 electric buses owned by Marin Transit for them. And hills, heat, and AC are also, as well as the number of passengers in the bus, are all things that we're learning as we operate those buses for Marin Transit, and we'll use those lessons as we look at how we modify our fleet in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other directors that have questions?
Yes, this is Patty. I just wanted to thank Dennis and staff for this comprehensive review of this potential option. It certainly seems to be not only the prudent thing to do, but it's important, and that's highlighted, Dennis, in your comments, to remember that we do have significant and great green initiatives as well, and that this is something that we're going to track for the future. So I just wanted to thank you for that, because I know that I had, I believe it was Lori Mott, reached out to me with some concerns, and thank you for addressing them.
Thank you. Director Garbarino. Any other directors?
This is Dick. If I could just follow up with one comment. I have to say, in thinking about it, the fact that none of our customers, our regular riders, have complained about this makes it not quite as important as I might otherwise be. That's who we would want to be servicing, it seems like. But it's still a good goal. But it's interesting that you're not getting those kind of complaints, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other directors? I do have one thing to add.
Quick question.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is a real quick question. I sure hope you put them into the garages of the apartment buildings you'll be building there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Director Hill. Anybody else? Then I will say I did have one thing I wanted to add myself, and that is it's kind of ancillary to the report itself, but when you pull into a gas station and you look for the pump for regular unleaded, no matter what gas station it is, no matter what brand, you pretty much get the same thing, and you certainly pump it out of the same sort of nozzle. And it seems to me that if we're going to move broadly to electric vehicles, a standardization and a move away from proprietary systems might be very helpful from the kind of discussion I saw in the literature provided with the presentation. Anyway, that would be my only point. Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this matter?
We do have one speaker, and we still have to pull the line to see if there's an additional speaker, so give me 1 second.
Please.
We have the one speaker, so we're going to open up the line, and Justine will invite that speaker to start.
Thank you.
We have Lori Mott speaking this morning. Lori, go ahead.
Good morning. It's Lori Mott. I'm with Cool the Earth and Drive Clean Bay Area, and I am a ferry user, and I own my I'm leasing my third electric car. I just wanted to give a little context for this discussion, which is between since the last meeting of your committee. Since the last meeting of your committee, Governor Newsom issued an executive order to ban the sale of new gas-powered vehicles by 2035. And with that, access to EV charging will become ever more critical. The ferry parking lot is an ideal location for EV charging because cars are typically remain there for the entire working day.
And with a level 1 charger, that is sufficient to get enough juice into the battery, particularly for some people who do not have access to charging at home. And I'll get to that in a moment. First, I wanted to say we strongly support the staff efforts to upgrading the 2 existing level 2 chargers to what in the report sounded like a total of 8 charging connectors. And we also support the intent to include EV charging in any future parking structure. Based on the staff's evaluation, we acknowledge that the existing power supply. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you having trouble hearing me?
No, please go ahead. There's been some interference.
Okay,
and
sorry. I was getting some interference on my line. We agree that wiring at the light poles is not at all suitable for level 2. We believe level 1 charging remains a possibility, provided such charging is compatible with the 20 or 30 amp circuits and the 208 volt or 277 volt power supply, and aggregate stays below the volt amp power supply capacity at the ferry facility. We have checked with some potential charger vendors as to compatibility, and initial indications are that about 30 level 1 chargers might be feasible at the light poles. This does not require retrenching. This is using existing wiring in the light poles. And I'd also note that the electricity is only drawn to the lights at night. So I don't know what that says about drawing electricity during the day when cars are parked there for longer periods. What the staff report doesn't address is that a major hurdle to EV adoption, which is necessary to reduce greenhouse gases and for you to comply with your green initiative, is that commuters who live in multi-unit dwellings do not have access to charging at home. Many existing EV drivers charge at home. If we want to make the EV acceleration transition equitable, we need to provide EV charging for people who live in multi-unit dwellings and are renters. The U.S. Department of Energy did a study several years ago that found when workplace charging, which is essentially the equivalent of parking at the ferry at the ferry parking lot, is available, consumers are 6 times more likely to buy an EV. So the whole point of installing level 1 chargers at the light posts is so that commuters who don't have access to charging at home can take advantage of their long duration parking at the ferry terminal and get their cars charged while they're at work. Also, I'd add that level 1 charging is ideal for owners of plug-in hybrid vehicles with a shorter electric range, which may be a bridging technology. So we look forward to working with staff and the committee to continue exploring light poles. Light pole charging is a rapidly changing and developing technology, and we would suggest that you keep this item on the agenda for future discussion, perhaps in several months. I'd also just add that in terms of your green initiative, if you're repaving the parking lot, it is cost effective to put in lines for future EV charging while you have the paving up. And additionally, I would say that I think other than Tesla, there will be a universal connector for EV chargers. It will switch to what is known in the parlance as the CCS connector as opposed to the CHAdeMO connector, which is on the demise. Thank you very much for considering my remarks.
Director Theriault, that concludes public comment.
Mr. Chair, this is Dick. I think that suggestion that this be reviewed periodically, and I know we have been, but it would be good to get this back on the agenda in 6 or 9 months to see where we're at.
If that's the pleasure of the committee, we will plan on doing that.
This is Patty. I'll just chime in. I would echo Dick's suggestion. Probably when it's appropriate, when there are new developments, would be a great time to get some more info.
This is Bert. I concur with that. It was a very good presentation by the puppet person.
Chair Theriault, are you on mute?
I must have hit mute by mistake. Sorry.
There you
No action being required for this item. We will now move on to item number 6, status report from board appointees on the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board. Staff report with a link to the SMART website is on page 19 of your packet. President Parr or Director Garbarino, which of you would like to jump in first?
I believe it's Director Garbarino. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Barb. Thank you, everyone. I might mention that I was just told by a colleague that Mercury's in retrograde, which may be why we're experiencing challenges in our communications, I guess. So thank you very much for that. I do see that in our packet, we do have a reference to the website for our recent meetings. I'd like to highlight that several things, that probably the most important piece for the finances of SMART are the savings that were recently achieved in refinancing its debt, which will, I think I might have mentioned this at one other presentation, which will save $3.34 million per year and actually get SMART now on solid ground with a future reserve through 2029. So that's just great news. The other pieces that I would like to highlight are in the report, and I can forward the specific communication to you, my colleagues, but SMART also received a AA rating on its refinancing for its construction bonds. Then finally, something that Farhad is Farhad Mansourian, the general manager of SMART, is very, very proud of is the SMART cleaning measures. And he was able to broadcast not only those to the public and to the board, and I'm happy to share this and the other two items that I mentioned, but apparently he got, and he's also proud of this, from his colleagues in the industry, he got a number of, hey, what are you doing? You're making us look bad. So he's helping to raise the bar in that effect and keeping the public safe during this pandemic. With that, I'm done, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Before those questions, Director Parr, did you have anything to add to Director Garbarino's report?
No, I'm fine with that. Just thank you to her again for doing the report.
Yes, and thank you also, Director Garbarino, from this quarter. Do any of the directors have questions for our representatives to the SMART board?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead, Director.
Has the ridership improved some on SMART?
It's bumped up slightly. We get a report weekly. Unfortunately, it was bumping up 3 to 5% a week that we were tracking it. There goes Mercury again. And then the fires hit, and that unfortunately kept it sort of status quo. We're looking forward now to another report this week and next. Hopefully it'll continue to bump up. But I will also send those 3 items that I mentioned in a message to Amaret to distribute to whomever would like on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, this is Judy. Patty, did we mention the listening sessions that SMART is doing currently?
Oh, no, that's great. Do you want to do that, Judy, or do you want me to mention it? Absolutely.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah. They've been wonderful, and I have to, and that's when I think I mentioned something about Director Rabbit orchestrated, if you will, a wonderful listening session up in Healdsburg. This last week, Board member Dan Hilmer did one in Larkspur, and there will be one on November 12th in San Rafael. They have been absolutely wonderful, very balanced, very informative, handled well when perhaps the public calls in with a contrarian view, and handled with grace. So I learned a lot about it. I learned a lot about what the public felt about SMART, and it was just a great vehicle. So I'm grateful to Farhad and his staff for making that a suggestion and having these things happen. I think the public is grateful for that opportunity as well. Judy, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that's it. Thank you. It's good.
Welcome.
I would just add that the local authorities, the mayors and the council members and the supervisors, have really stepped up to the plate to help us put together those listening sessions.
Mm-hmm.
It happens with an army of people out there making plans so that we can hear what folks are thinking, and they have been wonderful.
Thank you, Directors Parr, Garbarino, and Arnold. I apologize, I'm not on mute, and our macaw just rang her bell. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item, Madam Secretary?
Thank you. We'll pull the public line really quickly. We have no speakers on this item.
Thank you. So no action being required on this item. We'll go on to item 7, which is the status report on engineering projects. That begins on page 21. Ms. Bauer-Furbush, it's yours again.
Thank you, Chair Toria. My written report is before you, and I would like to mention one item in my report, and this is as you remember, in July, the board authorized conducting wind tunnel test of the new bridge railing and wind fairing. So we are about ready to start the testing. And the reason I'm mentioning it because it may coincide with really high winds that may projected to happen next week. So I wanted to mention that we are working on it, and hopefully through the testing we will be able to develop some mitigation measures. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any question that the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbush. Any questions from the directors for Ms. Bauer-Furbush? Okay, that then is the last item on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on it or on items not on the agenda?
We're going to pull the public line one last time to see if there's anyone under public comment. We have one speaker under public comment. We're going to open the line now to Justine to introduce our speaker.
Thank you.
We have Shane Weinstein who'll be speaking this morning under item 8.
Please go ahead, Mr. Weinstein.
Good morning, everyone. I would have thought that this was like a SMART meeting, to be honest with you. And I would like to, since Director Garbarino gave a very good report about what SMART is doing and everybody is asking them about cleaning, I urge that we ask SMART what they're doing and we start cleaning our fleet the way that they're going to be doing theirs as well. And when it comes to ridership, I would like, if there is going to be a ridership report, because that was asked by one of the other directors, that we actually look at that, because I think the voters in Marin and Sonoma County already really spoke out. So when we're talking about the public really being on this side, it may have been creeping up, but it wasn't creeping up by as much as the bus is. So I hope that we can get our focus back on Golden Gate Transit. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. I believe there is a ridership report at the next meeting with the Finance Committee. Anyone else from the public, Madam Secretary?
That concludes our public comment.
Then the one item remaining for us is adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Anyone?
Oh, second.
There's one. And a second.
Second.
Got it.
Okay.
I got it.
All in favor,
All right.
say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And there being nobody opposed, and the time being 10:19, that's the time the meeting ends. Thanks, folks.